Brings us right into our next event, which is DeEtte Decker. We look forward to hearing what you have to say to us, DeEtte. She is the social media strategist. What a great title. Social media strategist for the Presbyterian Church USA. And I am greatly looking forward to hearing what she has to say to help our churches in this confusing web of information. So I will turn this over now to DeEtte.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you to Rebecca for the invitation to be with you today. I bring greetings from Reverend Dr. Diane Moffett, the Executive Director and President of the Presbyterian Mission Agency. Diane wanted me to be sure to thank you for your good work, your hard work, and the ministry that your Presbytery does to represent Christ to the world. So greetings from Diane. As I said, it is a privilege and a pleasure to be today. I actually am now the acting senior director of communications for the Presbyterian Mission Agency. So now I oversee all aspects of what the Presbyterian Mission Agency does in terms of communication, everything from our social media to our website, to our communication workshops, to e-newsletters. If it has to do with communications, me and my team have the joy of having our hands right in the midst of it. So it's been a bit of a transition. I just took this position in April, and you know, taking that position leading up to GA was all kinds of fun. So it's been a bit of a ride, and I'm honored to be able to do this ministry. So I've you know, you would think coming out of GA, I would have had enough of these types of meetings, right? But I don't know if I'm some kind of weird Presbyterian wonk who loves to see the business side of the work that we do, or I'm just a glutton for punishment. I don't know, but I loved being a fly on the wall for the work that you all just completed and will continue to do. And I noticed a few things that actually really parallel conversations that we in the Presbyterian Mission Agency have been having. And it's this idea of this between space. Rachel, in her reflection, talked about the in-between space of experience and the realm, that being the realm of God's Spirit. And Rebecca talked about the in-between space between the past and our future. In the mission agency, I introduced a term to our agency that I would love to introduce to you, and that's called that space, that in-between space, that time of transition. That's long been called liminal space. And it's in the liminality that possibility lies. Dr. Richard Rohr says that it's in that liminal space where the Holy Spirit lives. And we should do everything in our power to get to that liminal space as often as possible, so that we can have eyes to see where the Spirit is leading us and ears to hear what lies ahead for us. So it was, in my mind, the work of God and the Spirit to hear that the Southeastern or Southern Illinois Presbytery is living and leaning into and having conversations about this liminal space. So let's talk a bit more about that liminal space and how that space really has to do with the intersection of the digital and divine. I want to start with a story for you about a minister that was on the cutting edge of his communication skills, the cutting edge of his ministry and creative use of media. His ingenuity gained him much awe. His media works, including chronicles, reflections, and sermon collectives, garnered much attention and unprecedented traffic and market attention. Wouldn't we all love to have that? His novel communication created large revival meetings and countless followers experiencing the divine in new and strange ways outside of the regular purview of the church. His name, likeness, and ministerial activities and schedule appeared in countless popular media outlets. His utilization of new media enabled him to escape the established norms of Christian ministry and theology. And moreover, employing new media made his message and influence seemingly boundless. Supporters, well, they welcomed this new christened methods and convinced that they represented a new and exciting form and practice of church work with obvious results. Nevertheless, despite his popularity and innovative use of media, or rather perhaps because of it, numerous detractors regarded his mass communication and media ministry as inappropriate at best, and at worst, sacrilegious, and maybe even downright heretical. The preacher's new methods were criticized on several grounds. Some intellectuals ignored him, while others publicly disavowed him and his ministry. And a group of college faculty declared that he lacked the substantive skills to help persons truly understand, quote, the religious life. Moreover, they dubbed his ministry a detriment to religion, dangerous, and utterly inconsistent with the gospel and the very essence of church work. Similarly, a group of clergy issued a dismissive statement describing his ministry as shallow. The year was 1744, and it seemed that George Whitefield and his creative use of communication and print media were poised to significantly alter the religious landscape of America, namely the nature of religious experience, religious gatherings, and parishioners' expectations of what it means to be and do church. Now, call me crazy. It seems like we might be living in 1744 in some regard whenever it comes to digital media. I have had the pleasure of having folks tell me digital media is not real. You can't possibly engage the scripture, have an experience of the movement of God to truly be and do church in the digital or virtual realm. And to that, I would say, if we believe in the power of God and that God is not limited by date or time or location, then maybe we shouldn't feel like something is lost if we don't have a building. And I promise you, Rebecca and I did not talk about her presentation and my presentation. So let's talk about digital work and the church. I'm going to share my screen. Digital media and the church. Now, this might come as a surprise, but it is true that according to the latest Barna research, most churchgoers don't prefer digital gatherings. They are interested, however, in having both physical and digital options. So they don't want one or the other, they want both. So about 52% of churchgoers say that their preference is for physical gathering. They love being together. They love seeing one another face to face. They love the communion and the camaraderie that happens whenever we gather together. 1%, or I'm sorry, 1/10, or approximately 9% say that their preference is for digital gatherings only. And a third, 35%, claim that they want both. So what are we to do with this information? How does this information inform our thoughts about hybrid church? Well, again, I go back to, actually, it was a quote by Nona Jones, who is the vice president of Facebook Faith Partnerships, that said, if we believe that that the power of God is not limited by date, time, or location, then we should not feel like something is lost if we don't have a building. Friends, I hate to say it, but online is here to stay. Whether we like it or not, whether we appreciate it or not, whether we feel like we're prepared for the challenges that come along with it, online is here to stay. And so I want to invite you today, instead of seeing this as an insurmountable challenge that we have to overcome, and maybe even in some ways grieve the loss, right, of what was, I want to invite you to consider leaning into that liminal space, to that brave space that was talked about earlier, and consider the opportunity and the gift, yes, the gift that this time has given us. You know, God wants to add to the church daily, and we all want that Acts 2:47 experience, right? Where day by day the Lord added to their number to those who were being saved. We all want that experience. However, we ignore, I think, perhaps Acts 2:46 that said day by day they spent much time together in the temple. My question to you would be, what are you doing day by day in your ministry to bring people to a knowledge and understanding of Christ? And is it possible that digital is a way to do that? So again, this Barna research showed that folks want more bite-sized spiritual content throughout the week. But we as leaders seem to still concentrate on Sunday morning. We say, meet us at this place, at this time, at this location, on this day. While the rest of the world does not operate in this way, right? The rest of the world says you can go online any day of the week, any time of day, and order anything that you want. You can go online and you can watch any show you want to watch any day of the week, anytime. If you're 3 a.m., can't sleep, if you're like me, and you think to yourself, I wonder what the daily lectionary is today, you can go online and grab that. If you want to order socks for a Father's Day gift or a birthday gift, you can do that any day, anytime, anywhere. But for the church, we're living still in a pre-digital age where we say, come to us. We would love to have you. Come to us at our time in our building on Sunday mornings. Does that fit with where the rest of culture is? And frankly, how we're living the rest of our lives? This doesn't really seem anymore to be welcoming or hospitable or even realistic for most folks with our schedules. We're living more and more in a world where people work varied shifts. And perhaps coming to a building on Sunday morning is no longer an option. It used to be Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Now it's Sunday through Saturday, 24/7. As the greatest generation, the silent generation, and the boomers get older, several of us are caring for our older parents. And if we have day jobs throughout the week, the weekends become the time that we are caring for our aging parents and spending time with them, setting them up for the rest of their week. And finally, as much as we hate to admit it, family commitments and extracurricular activities often conflict with what's happening in the rest of the world. I am the mom of 4 children, all of them teenagers, and all of them with a lot of activities that they need to get to and go to. And I hate to admit it, but field hockey, soccer, baseball, basketball, it still happens on the weekends. And it often conflicts with church. Now, I'm a previous pastor and Christian communicator, and I hated hearing families say this. And I would often say, it's a matter of priorities. You have to figure out where your priority lies. Is it church or is it soccer? The reality is most families will choose soccer over church. And that's just the way it is. So what opportunity lies there? How can we still get our communities and our families, our younger folks who are used to getting their information online, how can we adapt and lean into this opportunity? Let me give you an analogy, and I'm probably going to date myself here. Who remembers Blockbuster? Blockbuster Video, right? Do you remember? So they had that great blue sign, and if you were like me on Friday night or Saturday night, you would go to Blockbuster and you would walk the aisles and look at all of the videos of all of the movies that were available to rent. And you would peruse the aisles, you'd turn it over, read what was happening, the latest, greatest, I don't know, Footloose, with Kevin Bacon. Name the movie and Blockbuster had it. And then you'd walk up to the cash register, you'd give them the little packaging, they'd put the cassette in there, they'd say, be kind, rewind, you'd pay for it, and you'd go home and you'd watch your movie. I loved Blockbuster. It was my favorite place to be on a Friday night. Inevitably, I'd run into friends there and we'd end up combining, going to one of our homes and watching the movie. However, there's a new thing called streaming. Maybe you've heard of Netflix. Anybody heard of Netflix? Blockbuster and Netflix at one time were in competition. Netflix decided, hey, we can do this too, but we can make it easier. We'll do it by mail, so you never have to leave your house. And then they morphed into online streaming. Now, from the comfort of my couch, I no longer have to go to Blockbuster to get a video. I can sit on my couch, bring up Netflix, and watch any movie, any TV show, any customized Netflix documentary. It's all there at the touch of my hand in any time of day, any day that I want. We, as the church, are stuck in Blockbuster mode. We want to say, come to our store, come to our building at this time, at this day, and get what it is that you might want or need. We're doing what I would say is trying to produce a TV show called Sunday Morning Worship. And we're trying to get into the living rooms and then hold their attention for an hour. Time is a very, very, very valuable currency, perhaps in this day and age, the most valuable currency. And we have to answer the question as a church, why should people pay attention? Because that's what folks are asking of the church. Why? Why should I pay attention to you? Why should I come to your building? Why should I come at that time? And that is, frankly, a lot of pressure, right? Does anybody else feel that pressure of trying to come up with the answer to why? I want to say that we are living in a post Blockbuster and a post TV culture. Relationship now is everything. Content is everything. And feedback is everything. And this completely changes the way that we do both in person and digital worship, hybrid worship. The focus of a hybrid worship now needs to be relationship, content, and feedback. So the day of the sage on the stage, the preacher on the stage, giving out wisdom and advice and sharing words of Christ to the masses is coming to an end. The days of I preach, you listen is going by the wayside, especially for our younger generation. It could be the greatest message in the world, which I believe the church has. It could be the greatest message in the world, but if it can't be delivered on relationship, this two-way communication, and have great content to these bite-size spiritual content that we can deliver to folks Sunday through Saturday, any time of day. The church needs to be disrupted. And this, I think, goes back to that space between the past and the future. For the church to be disrupted, we have to live in that brave space. But leaders and congregations were not out of options or opportunities. As we know, for the last several years during COVID, lots of folks have been scrambling, trying to figure out only what I would say is one aspect of their ministry, and that's Sunday morning worship. I know for myself, whenever COVID first hit and everything was shut down, I was the director of communications for a large church here in the Louisville area. And that was our focus. How in the world can we get our worship out to folks on Sunday morning? But as time has passed, we need to begin to consider all aspects of our ministry, aspects of what's happening in the life of the church, and not just one. So how do we go about ministering to others? And that's what I want to talk about today is maybe you've had conversations with your session or your Christian education or your youth minister, or I don't know who. Maybe you've had conversations about what would it look like if we began to do blank in a new and different way. Here are some ideas of things that could potentially be both online and in person. What about pastoral care? What would it look like if pastoral care was available both online and in person? Now you can go online and see your therapist any day of the week, virtually. What about Sunday school and small groups, youth groups, book clubs, book discussion groups? You name it, anything is available to you online. And so the question becomes, how can we create a hybrid church that incorporates all ministries of our church, all events, all programming. Here are some helpful ways that could help you thinking through this. Mastering digital ministry. I promise you, it's not as hard and scary as you think. And I want to let you know that the Presbyterian Mission Agency is actually here to help. The communications ministry has a communicators network, and our entire communications team stands ready, willing, have conversations and even free workshops with you and your individual churches or your presbytery to dive even deeper into some of this work. Websites, social media, live streaming. What do you need to live stream? How do you do it? Video, photography, how to tell a story. We've got you covered and we'd love to help. But before we get to that, we really need to give an overarching view of how you even begin to approach digital ministry. And number one, I'm going to say, again, going back to the idea of the sage on the stage is coming to an end, is you need to move from content toward conversations. People are not hungry for more digital content. People are not hungry for more advice, for more bits of wisdom. What people are craving and what they need, in my estimation, more than anything else in this age and this time, is connection. People want connection. We were made for relationships. If we look at the ministry of Christ, it's relationship based. It was all about making connections. So how do we do that? Engage in conversation, move away from content to conversation. Now we need to be a curator of conversation, and to break that down into a simple formula, I like to use a third you, a third conversation, and a third pulling it all together. I use what's called a revolution mix for worship services. I was associate pastor at a church plant in Louisville, Kentucky several years ago. And this is exactly the formula that we used for our worship. We did a 5 to 8 minute introduction to our sermon. And then right in the middle of it, you had a time for reflection. And that time of reflection could be a prompt to think about, an action for people to take. It could be a turn to your neighbor and discuss. And then we came back with what we called the wrap up. And that was 5 to 8 minutes of taking that base foundation intro to the sermon and wrapping it into here's what it means for you today in your daily life. And then we did something incredibly crazy, and we invited people to text in questions. What questions do you have about what we've talked about today? What's been presented today? What questions do you have about how you received this? Do you have any follow-up questions on the reflection time? Do you have any follow-up questions on what this might have meant for the first century culture? And this allows folks to go deeper into the experience, but also it allows for what they're experiencing and the message that you're bringing to come alive, and to come alive for them in a very significant and individual way. They can connect their life with the word. They can connect their understanding with the understanding of others and begin to be in conversation about what that means for them, for their lives, for the church. Hybrid church needs to be epic, EPIC. And this is a term that was introduced by Lynn Sweets. And EPIC stands for experiential. People need to experience something. I'm actually on vacation this week and the week prior, and I just got home from Walt Disney World. And my family and I went to Walt Disney World, and one of the things I will say about Disney, and I have lots of thoughts, but one of the things that I will say is it is epic because it is definitely experiential. It's definitely participatory. It is most certainly image driven, and it is conversational. It leads to conversation. And this is what we need to have whenever we're talking about our hybrid gatherings, an experiential component to it. Invite folks into an experience, not just a lecture. You know, maybe it's something as simple as you bring in a smell or a dim the lights or add an art component to it, something that goes to their five senses to make it more experiential, participatory. Invite folks to do something. Maybe you want them to answer a question. Maybe you want them to actually get out of their seat and write down something and put it in a basket. Or maybe you want them to get out of their seat and go get something, a rock, a heart, I don't know. But this is where you can be creative. Image driven. Not everyone can auditorily process as quick as others. Some folks actually need images to help the information and the words and the meaning of the message really get into their understanding. So add imagery whenever possible. That could be done with a piece of art that explains and illustrates the key point that you're trying to make. It could be done exactly like I'm doing today with simple words and process. But be sure it's image driven and finally conversational. One of the best things that I could have ever heard as a pastor was seeing folks come in for either Sunday morning or a small group or something like that and saying to me, hey, I just want to let you know, my kids and I were talking about that point that you made in last Sunday's service, and we've really been talking about that. And I wonder if you could answer. They asked this question. I'm wondering if you had anything to say about that. We want what we do in church to continue to live with lives of our folks, so that conversations carry into their spaces with the folks that matter in their lives. So again, epic, experiential, participatory, image-driven, and conversational. Next, let's give them some bite-sized pieces of information. And this is really easily done. How many folks have one of these? It's a smartphone and my background is blurring. We can provide bite-sized spiritual pieces, spiritual content that are experiential, participatory, image-driven, and lead to conversations every single day of the week. What would that look like? Well, here's some ideas that I have. What if you used your smartphone to provide 30-second prayers every day and post them on your website or your social media? What if you did Monday morning devotional that were just 3-minute devos to start the week? Sunday sermon reflection questions. Hey, maybe it's a Tuesday tips or Tuesday, teaser for the upcoming sermon. And you say, hey, I've been working on this sermon, and here's some questions that I have coming into Sunday. Reflect with me on these. What if you did a 60-second with the staff and you spotlighted a staff or volunteer every week, and just heard from them, just real quick, 60 seconds, what's on your heart and mind? Where did you see God this week? Where are you looking for transformation in your life? What's God saying to you? This can all be done with just raw video on your phone. You don't have to do anything fancy. It doesn't require any kind of special, skills or any kind of special, great production quality or value. Something very simple and vulnerable, that folks see that they can connect with. You can do music of the choir, you can do handbells. We saw this in action today during our worship with the beautiful music of the pianists that played. Give them something good today, every day, throughout the week, not just on Sunday mornings. Give something to folks every day. I wonder what it would look like if you gave folks something good and then an assignment or a challenge. Maybe you give them a scripture or a song or a prayer and an assignment with that. Now, take this song or this, whatever you got from this scripture, this song, or this prayer, and share it with somebody else. Take a piece of artwork or scripture and ask folks, what do you see? How does this speak to you? How might it connect with our text for today? Another idea is what I call ready, go. And you just take 2 random objects to create a story of God. It might be a story of, take a rock and a leaf, and how does this speak to you about the story of God? For me, this speaks to me about story of God's creation and how God is always with us, even in the most ordinary things that we might take for granted. God is, you could talk about God's diversity in creation. There's all kinds of things. Just take 2 random things. Talk about God's story. Having this type of format really allows yourself to experiment. There is absolutely no pressure for getting it right, because we're actually experimenting. There is no right. We're playing. There is no failure, right? I tell my team all the time, we do not fail. We simply fall forward. We see what's working and we go with it. We see what isn't working and we adjust, we experiment, we, make corrections as necessary, and we keep on moving forward. So I want to tell you that have fun with it, right? Don't look at digital ministry or this new space, this liminal space, as scary or overwhelming. Give yourself permission to have fun. Give yourself freedom to have fun and to maybe not get it right or perfect the first time. Nobody's even looking for that. Okay, so let's talk about how we can put this into practice. And I have some reflection questions for you. And I'll give you, I don't want to spend too much time with you all being able to reflect on these. I believe everybody will have this presentation made available to you. so that maybe you can reflect on these on your own time, or what would be great is to reflect on them with your session, your Christian education committee, whomever you think would be best to reflect with on some of these things. What holds you back from moving forward? What areas of connection are your people most hungry for? What programs are you willing to try going live via Zoom or live stream with? How can you communicate to your congregation about digital opportunities? What are some ways you can reimagine your current worship services to be epic? What resources does your church currently have to discuss potential digital opportunities? All these are ways that you can begin to think and reflect to begin to put these things into practice. I want to introduce to you a vital and important part of digital ministry, and this is the content framework. Your congregation's content framework is essentially the way you utilize your content, your conversations to lead your audience from one channel to the next. And this is going to go back to your goals. Every church needs to have a communication strategy. Again, if you don't have a communication strategy, this is absolutely something that the Communicators Network would love to be able to help your church create. And you need to have a well-planned framework to accomplish your goals. When we talk about content framework, there's three things that I want you to know and understand leaving our time together today. You have three different, let's say, distributions. You have your outposts, your media stations, and then home. So your outposts, those are channels where you have dialogue with your members or potential visitors to your church. These are where there's these are where these conversations can actually take place. I highly recommend in today's day and age that every church have at least one social media channel, and please don't make it a billboard. Social media is supposed to be social, and that means conversations. So this is a great place for you to begin to have these conversations. And again, we'd love to dive deeper into social media, guys. So some of the outposts that I think are best for churches is Facebook and Instagram, sometimes Twitter, depending on the life of your congregation. Content or context when it comes to social media is really important. The next is your media station. And it's great to think about these as moving folks from one to the next to the next. So you're gonna have outposts where you're having conversations with folks, and then you have your media stations. And this is where you distribute content to people in more of a longer format. So think about your e-newsletter. This could also be a blog that you have as part of your website. It could be a live stream. And again, this is where you are distributing information to them. I know a lot of churches have weekly emails that would also be considered a media station. And finally, home. And home is your website. This is where you want your audience to take action toward your goals. If you're having an event, it needs to point people to the website. If you're having a Bible study, people should be able to register, find information, and even links to the book or the scripture or what have you on your website. Your website is everything. It used to be the front door of the church. Now it's more than just a looking glass in. It is where everything should happen. I am thrilled to hear that that the Presbytery is making available to churches without a website, a simple website, because that is the bread and butter of digital ministry for a church. That's phenomenal, and I wish every presbytery would do that. So kudos to you for doing that. So again, this is your content framework. You have your outposts where you're engaging in conversation. This is really, your social media, back and forth dialogue. Your media stations, where you're distributing long form information, and then home, your website, where you're pointing everybody to all the time, where anything that needs to take place, anything that you want your folks or potential folks to do, to be able to find that information and contact you on website. Journey map. Okay, now we're really getting into the exciting stuff. This is a journey map, or what I know lots of churches would call an intentional pathway. Every single church, every single organization will have an intentional pathway of how they want to move folks from being cognizant or having an awareness of their church, being a committed member of their church, where they attend worship regularly, where they serve regularly. And what this is a digital journey map. This could be used for hybrid, for in-person only, but this is just an intentional pathway of what I see as one way that you could move your folks in your community and the larger community from an awareness of your church to committed full-time members. So let's walk through this real quick. Someone who is cognizant is the very first step. We want to get them moved over to curious. And then then there's the contemplation. Well, gee, that was kind of interesting. And I did make some friends, and I find their message to be compelling, and they seem to be doing good stuff. And I don't know, I need to think about that more, and maybe attend a bit more. To consideration, where, okay, I've not only just attending worship, they're involved in some other class or event, ongoing type engagement other than just worship, to attending worship and serving regularly. The goal for, you will see in each of these, there's a goal. So the goal for cognizant is, it's real simple. We just want to raise awareness of our church and reach new people. Under curious, we want to generate interest, right? So now that somebody is aware of our church, we want them to be interested in what our church is doing, and then move them to contemplation, where, okay, they're interested. Now they're increasing their engagement. They're contemplating what the church community, this family of faith, how they can become engaged, and how this church community and family of faith can answer a question or fulfill a need that they have. And then under consideration, the goal is to educate and inspire them. This is no other way to say it. This is the disciple making process, right? And then we want to move them to commitment, where they're engaged in the advocacy and evangelism of the church. So next is strategy for each of these levels. For digital strategy, we want to reach the audience, and we want to grow our following. So we're going to go with inspiring folks, getting mentions on our social medias. We're going to boost some posts. The O means owned, E is earned, and P is paid. For curious, you're going to show a need that they have and how you solve that problem for them. And that's a way to get folks move from reaching them to showing a need or problem that you solve. And then strategy is move from visiting to attending. For both of the curious and contemplation, the tactics are the same. You're going to inform them and inspire them. You're going to tell stories. Tell the stories of your church. Tell the stories of the members of the church. Tell the stories of the ministry and work of your church in the larger community. Use hashtags. Those are owned. User content. So if you have a person in your church that is part of your community and they are sharing your stories, that's user content. Plan a visit. Have folks on your website have a way that they can say, hey, I plan on coming to your church on Sunday. And there's a whole process that you can lead them through with it's all automated, and automated replies and triggers that you can set up on your website to be able to do that. And you can also do targeted ads on Facebook or your social media, or if you have a larger budget, looking at radio or something like that. And then you want to, under consideration, moving them from visiting to attending. You want to increase their engagement. You're going to do all of the same tactics and all of the same tactics to get them to attend worship and serve regularly. And here's your framework, your content framework: outposts, outpost and media hub, outpost, media hub, and home for the final 3 steps. I know that is a lot of information. And again, this will be made available to you to review. So finally, let's look at some tech and tips. When we're looking at this liminal space and we're leaning into moving into this intersection of the digital and divine, there's some practicality questions that we need to ask. And you really need to look at a couple of things. One, you need to look at your budget. How much money do you have to spend? And what grants or funding are available through the PCUSA or other organizations? And again, this is something that the Communicators Network, we'd be happy to help you out with. Look around at your community, your congregation, and you're going to have to assess your tech knowledge. Is there someone in your church or community that's very computer savvy that you can reach out to for help? Who can you enlist to help set up the technology and train others to use it? Where can you go? What resources can you tap into to learn how to do a quality live stream or social media or whatever? Again, we're here to help, and we can do the training for all of that. Other things to consider, and this is a big one. And I know, again, as a previous pastor, this is huge, and this is human resources. Volunteers. Are there folks in your church that enjoy videography, that might be interested in running your live stream? Who in your church might be interested in monitoring comments? Who might be interested in running your social media? How can you have conversations with these folks? Looking at volunteer roles, what jobs will you need? And how big of a volunteer base do you have to run some of these things every week and not burn them out? So questions that you would need to consider. Here are some video resources for you that are specific to live streaming. And again, live streaming, let's not forget, we're not just talking about worship, we're talking about the whole enchilada, right? Everything that's happening in the life of our church. These are simple stream setups that don't cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And you will be able to see all of those on your presentation when you receive it. Questions? I'm going to stop sharing now so I can see all of your faces. I know I threw a lot at you. And I knew it was going to be a lot, but I just feel like there's so much potential here. And I'm really excited about where you guys are going as a presbytery as a whole. So in the little time that we have remaining, what questions might I be able to answer for you?
And you can do that by raising your hand in the chat, and then hopefully we can call on you when we see your hand go up. I want to say, DeEtte, this has been fabulous. Thank you. This, Rebecca's presentation, your presentation really got us moving, I think, in this direction, and excited to see maybe it is possible for our churches to actually do this.
It is absolutely possible. Absolutely possible. I real quick, I'll tell you a story. I have worked with a UCC church in Owensboro, Kentucky, that is averages 12 people in in-person attendance on Sunday mornings and averages 35 online for Sunday mornings. And they have seen through their embrace of making this happen, right? Of kind of swallowing down the fears and understanding this is where the future of the church lies. This is where our entire culture and community and world have gone. We have to begin to keep pace with this. We have to make this jump. They're doing it. They are doing it, and they are growing. And they are finding that in their little community of Owensboro, Kentucky, they're the fastest growing church, and the fastest growing online. And for those who say that's not real church, Rebecca has heard my my in-depth thoughts on that, but it is real. It is very, very real. So again, it's possible. I believe in you. Let's do this.
All right. Any other questions? Or there's been quite a few comments in the chat room saying thank you, and this has been fabulous. We really have I know I've greatly appreciated hearing this. And the fact, how, maybe Nate or Stu, could you tell us how we can access some of this information, some of those slides that you had, especially that last one on the journey map? And I mean, I just think those are very helpful. How do we access those?
I believe I shared them with Rebecca or Marcia, maybe.
Actually,
so,
DeEtte, if you would send us that PowerPoint, send me that PowerPoint, I'll make sure that it gets to Stu for the website, but I'll also put it in the newsletter, which will be published again on August 1. So coming up really, really soon. On Monday, you'll get, all of you who are subscribing to the newsletter will get that link.
I will send those immediately. Also, I have put my direct email into a chat. I think somebody asked about who do we contact for wanting to create a website. Contact me directly, and I can get you in contact with the right person on our team. If you or your church might want to have, a free in-depth workshop, we would love to do that for you. We are here to serve you. We want to be able to have, your churches continue the great work that they're doing, and we want to help and partner with you in any way that we can do that.
Well, DeEtte, thank you. Thank you very much for this fabulous presentation. I think we all learned a lot.
Again, my email is in the chat. Please, please, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'm on vacation until Monday, but go ahead and shoot me an email with whatever needs or questions you might have. We would love to partner with you and serve you.
Great. Thank you.